clicking as people click their locks shut to make sure that the black man can't get in and steal their stuff. And see, from that standpoint, I disagree, and I know Onion would. You remember Greg Freeman?
Yes.
On the Post-Dispatch?
Yes, he was
sure.
a journalist.
So, terrific journalist.
Passed away a few years ago.
Yes. Great friend of ours, of course. And we had many conversations on the air where he'd come in and say that when he'd leave the Post and walk down Tucker, first thing he'd hear, the car locks going, and women would walk by him clutching their purses. And, Greg Freeman was a big guy.
He was.
Really big guy, and scared people tremendously, white people, because they thought that this big guy was possibly going to do something horrible to them, when the truth is all he was doing is writing his articles. He was a journalist.
Right.
And so, no, I think Onion would not say that things have gotten better that way. The law has gotten better, and we do allow black people into places that we normally would not allow them. But I think that a lot of that is reluctant, because I think that white people in this country would prefer not to have to see that black face. And Onion would say that every day, and this is the way we managed to get thrown off the air in plenty of places.
Well, two things. First of all, I will never throw anybody off the air for speaking their mind. And I respect the fact that you speak your mind about this. In fact, one of the things I respect about you, Mark, is that you raise your hand and say, yes, I am I think the term is radical left progressive.
Yeah.
You raise your hand and say that.
No, I do say that.
You don't hide behind many people who, in my opinion, are truly radical left progressives say, no, I'm every man. I want to get along, and they mask it. You don't, nor did Onion.
No, that's exactly right. And Onion didn't like the way we would label people, and he would not say that he was a liberal. He wouldn't say he was a leftist. He wouldn't say any of that. But Onion was.
Well, he would certainly, he was always on the side. He was always on the black side. A couple of things I remember him saying. First of all, he would quite often not only criticize white people who he thought treated black folks poorly, but he would criticize black people who he felt treated black folks poorly. Freeman Bosley, he had a feud with Freeman Bosley.
Yeah, it wasn't that much of a feud.
Sharon Tyrus.
Sharon, he loved Sharon.
He got into that big argument.
No,
with
there
her
was
on
an
the air.
argument, but it was a political argument. It was never personal.
Well, I don't know that anything with him was ever personal.
Yeah, Sharon loved Onion, and Onion loved Sharon, and Onion loved Freeman also. Okay, there wasn't a day that he didn't love Freeman.
But if one of those two politicians ever supported, was it Jim Shrewsbury? They were supporting Jim Shrewsbury for some reason, and it got to the point where I think, and again, I'm paraphrasing here, going by memory, but if something along the lines of, look, the white ones are never going to support you. Why would you ever support the white ones? It was that type of attitude that he would have. The surprising thing...
No, that's true. But that's very correct.
But the surprising thing is 99% of the time he was right, whereas white politicians would not support the black ones.
No, that's true.
And and remember, on his show, if he had a black man or woman come on and take issue with something that he was saying, especially if they took the white side, he would say those three words, "You stupid Negro."
I was just going to say.
He would always say that.
I was just going to say, when he talked about black people who he didn't like, he would call them a Negro,
a stupid Negro.
So yeah, well, at least a Negro. But he definitely felt that there were black people who sold out to the white community. They would take 10 cents, and it wasn't even a lot of money. It was just they would get whatever they could get, a little bit, and they would sell out the interests of black people. And he was very strongly pro-black, and so that was what Onion was all about. It was never a question of should the government do this or that, or,
Nope,
or,
nope.
or it was always a question of
black people?
how did it affect black people.
Yep,
That was the
always.
only thing that he was concerned about. And he would come because, for years I at the beginning I wasn't doing it, but I eventually started teaching, and he'd come to my classes all the time.
Really?
And talk to the kids about race.
The white ones and the black ones?
He'd come everywhere.
All right.
He made a poor Asian girl cry, a little girl. He didn't mean to, but he made her cry because he told her that she was white. And she said, "No, I'm not. I'm Asian." He said, "Darling, in this country, if you're not black, then you get the privileges of being white, which makes you white." So, he insisted, and she started crying. He didn't want her to cry. He was just trying to make a point.
Sure.
That she really was getting the value of not being black. That the key was not being black. And even, interestingly enough, with Hispanics, he would try to tell them. He would say, "Look, throughout our entire civil rights movement, you were busy trying to be white. So no, I have no sorrow for what you're going through, because listen, when we were suffering, instead of standing up with us, you tried to convince people that you were the white man and you should be left alone. You didn't worry about what happened to us. So no, I'm not worried about what happens to you." And, so, which actually surprised me because, many times people would come up to him and say things about other groups. It could be about, it could be Hispanics. It could be different, especially if anybody said anything about Jews. It really got him very upset, because what his attitude is that if you'll say that about any other group right now in front of me, in 2 seconds you're going to walk away and you'll be saying, and then he would say the N-word.
Right.
He would say, that's what you're going to say to the next person that you walk into who is not black. So don't talk that way around me.
If you're going to talk bad about the Jew, you're going to talk bad about the black man.
Right.
Squared.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of things he always said. Two things he said that and the reason I respected the guy and always loved listening to him on the radio, because I knew I would get commentary, but I would never get a lie, because he researched everything he said. And somebody, it was a white man, called up on one of his shows one time, and he said, "Look, you've got this black politician." He even named names. This guy, this gal, this guy, this guy, and they're crooked, they're stealing and everything. And Horton did not deny that. He said, "Look, yeah, the black politicians are crooked. They steal, but the white ones have been doing it for years, and now it's our turn." He never denied it.
No, he never did.
But
and he knew every single one of them. We both did. We knew who they were taking money from and why and how, and it was pretty pathetic, and we didn't like it. But
his statement, the white ones have been doing it for years.
Well, that's right. No,
that was the attitude. He never denied it, though.
Oh, no, and again, I think his greatest criticism of the black ones who were stealing is that they didn't steal enough.
I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe he would say that.
Yeah. No, he did say that. Yeah.
The other thing that he said one time is somebody talked about all the poor innocent black people that are in prison. And Onion said, "Look, I've visited a lot of people in prison, hundreds, maybe thousands," he said. "I don't think I ever ran across one innocent, but there may have been one guy who was innocent." He said, "But everybody that's in prison, they're in prison because they broke the law." He said, "Even those that maybe were railroaded on this charge probably did 10 other things that they never got caught for."
Yeah.
So he never denied that they were criminals.
Yeah. So perfect segue into the Ellen Reasonover story. Do you know about Ellen?
No, share that with us, please.
So Ellen was a black woman who showed up one day in Delwood at the Delwood Market and found a guy behind the counter shot dead. So she immediately called the police, and the police came, and they surveyed the situation, and they knew right away that Ellen had nothing to do with this crime.
Sure.
She just called it in.
She stumbled upon it.
She was doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. She called it in. And when she called it in, the police who showed up there were very kind to her and respectful, and they sent her on her way after all the questions. So the next thing that happened is she got a phone call, and the phone call came from somebody in the prosecutor's office who said, if you will do us a big favor, we would really appreciate it. And she's, what's the favor? And they said, look, and they didn't say this on the phone, but they got her together. And they said, look, we got a guy who murdered somebody, and we can't prove it. But what we'd like to do is put this guy as the responsible person for the crime that you reported. And if you'll just say that he did it, we'll lock him up. It won't be for what he did, but it'll be deserved
Justice
anyway.
Justice will be served.
Yeah, so because we can't prove the other stuff. And Ellen said, look, I understand you got a problem. Your problem is your problem. She said, I'm just here to tell the truth. I can't tell what is not true. And they said, and remember now, this came from Buzz Westfall. They said, if you will tell the story we want, everything will be fine. But if you don't, and you tell what you're saying, if you claim that this guy didn't do it, then we will blame this on you and put you away. And Ellen Reasonover said, look, I didn't do it, and you're not going to put me away. I didn't do a thing. And they put her away.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. And she was in jail for, I believe it was 25 years. And Onion spent many of those years trying to help get Ellen Reasonover out of jail. And eventually he helped to find one of the people from the Innocence Project that showed up and did help to get her out of jail, because by that time, Westfall had become the county executive, and Onion chased after Westfall for years. And wherever Westfall would speak, Onion would be there. And Westfall would say at the beginning of the meeting, if you, Onion, would take a few minutes and tell everybody what a crook I am, then we can get that out of the way and then move on. And so Onion would, and they would move on. So then he had an assistant prosecutor at the time, and his name is, because he's still alive, Stephen Goldman, who's a judge. Stephen Goldman. And what eventually happened with him is that the people from the Innocence Project somehow got into his desk drawer through some kind of sunshine law request. And believe it or not, in his desk drawer, they found a tape, which was a conversation with this jailhouse snitch that completely exonerated Ellen. And that tape got in front of a lady named Hamilton, Judge Hamilton, federal judge, and she heard the tape, and she said, we're removing her from jail immediately. And she was let out. Subsequently, she may have gotten, I think the story on the internet says $7 or $8 million from the state of Missouri for being improperly put in jail. Yeah.
Sure.
But on the other hand, there are others that I believe, I always heard the story, she got $20 million. The problem, of course, is for the 25 years she spent in jail, and she had a daughter when she was just incarcerated. So that daughter grew up, without her mother. And, of course, no millions was enough.
Sure.
But they did pay her millions because, in fact, they had railroaded her exactly as you described. And a lot of people have said to me over the years, how is it possible that Westfall and Goldman were able to maintain their positions without any kind of problems for them? And the answer is that people talked about prosecutorial discretion, allowing these people to really push their advocacy far beyond what was true. And so, Ellen got out. They never suffered consequences. Westphal and Goldman. And here